Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Everybody give me a thumbs up if you can hear my voice, please. Thank you, one and all. Welcome to the Board of Aldermen work session for Monday, November 9. We have on our agenda this evening the budget presentation. As you know, we have worked for months on this budget like we do every year, but this one's been a little bit more complicated for obvious reasons. I am extremely proud of the work of our finance director, Ms. Reitz, and under the leadership of Mr. Shelton and the rest of his team. That's the extent of my introduction. Ms. Reitz, would you please tell us where we are, where we've been, where we are, and where we go from here?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to see if I can share my screen. I do have a short PowerPoint that will hopefully help. Okay. All right. Thank you. I just wanted to start off with a little bit of the intent of this presentation. I want to give you a fairly high-level view of the budget. I know we've talked about the budget numerous times, and we've talked about a lot of the kind of the background leading up to the 2021 budget, really since April of this year, when the COVID ramifications really started showing themselves, and we realized that we had to make some immediate changes to our spending in order to secure our reserves, make sure that we didn't spend more than we absolutely had to. So you've been involved in a lot of those discussions. It seems like they've been going on forever, but all summer and fall. We did have a brief presentation in October, which I discussed some of the revenue shortfalls, which hopefully gives you a little bit of a background for this. And those of you who were involved in the 2020 budget process know that we had a very conservative budget starting off for 2020 to begin with. We kept it fairly conservative and with very little increase over the 2019 budget. Excuse me. So starting back in early April, when the COVID lockdown kind of started and we started seeing our sales tax revenues declining, the citywide staff started working on adjusting expenditure behaviors in their departments, and went through really line by line and kind of project by project and looked at our 2020 budget to see where we could make cuts. And then since the beginning of April, our city planner and Mr. Spencer and I have looked at the revenues that have come in, the sales tax, every month, doing projections and looking at those to see if we could give ourselves a little more of a long-term perspective. So we have been working at this. I'm going to try not to repeat maybe some of the things that we discussed in October and that we've kind of been working on over the past few months. But I'm certainly available to answer any of your questions. So what I want to start off with is this is the 2021 recommended budget for the city by fund. So you can see that we're looking at, as we usually do, looking at the 2020 budget, the current budget, and comparing it to the 2021 recommended budget. Now I will say that the goal of this 2021 budget is to provide the highest level services we possibly can to the community while conserving as much fund balance as we can for future years. We all know we've seen the projections on fund balance. Even before we had reductions with the COVID results, that fund balance was starting to erode a little bit. So we've made a very concerted effort in both 2020 and 21 to keep expenses as low as possible. So our traditional way of looking at the budget is to compare the current year budget to the recommended budget. And doing that, you can see we have a very low percentage increase across all funds, some higher than others, but at just a little over 1% for the city as a whole. Now, this doesn't take into consideration the reductions that we did in 2020 to help us stabilize our fund balance with our revenue reductions. So I think it makes a lot of sense then to look at the 2021 budget and compare it to the 2020 estimated expenditures for this year. So these are after we've made our COVID response, basically. We've cut projects, we've cut everything that we feel that we can cut in the 2020 budget without causing us future hardship or future additional costs because maybe we haven't maintained things that we need to. So this comparison is really our COVID response budget 2020. So what we actually think we're going to spend, and our 2021 recommended budget, and then showing the percentage changes. So you'll see in these funds that have a large percentage of projects, you're going to see the bigger increases because the projects that got deferred from 2020, a lot of them then moved into 2021. Plus we had 2021 projects that we wanted to still continue. So overall, about a 20% increase in the budget. And again, most of that change is related to major projects. So the Ways and Means Commission met on November 5th. The Ways and Means Commission has been very active with this budget, more so than other years. They've done a lot of review. They've had several meetings. We had a separate meeting where we just went over my budget estimate, revenue estimates, and they looked at them. They gave me some recommendations, some very good recommendations, and I made adjustments accordingly. So they have been working with this budget. They recommended at their last meeting on November 5th that the recommended budget, be approved as submitted with one modification, and that being that the fire and ice event be canceled for 2021. The next thing that we will have before you is the public hearing on November 23rd. That'll be the first official reading of the budget. And then the second reading and hopefully finalization will be December 14th. This is the end of year 2020 estimate. So we've started with our beginning fund balance, added in our estimated revenues, subtracted our estimated expenditures. And so you can see the change then in our fund balance for each fund and the ending fund balance. And we'll talk about each fund individually, but this just gives you the overall 2020 where we expect to be at the end of the year. And you can see that our ending fund balance ratio is 74%. And that's the fund balance compared to the general fund expenditures. So a couple things to just point out here in 2020 is that this that I didn't make any real assumption changes since we spoke on October 12th. The sales tax revenues I'm still estimating are going to be down about $1.6 million. That's for all sales tax types. We are currently down about 3% year to date. In the 1 cent and the quarter cent option, we're down 10 to 11% in the capital improvement fund and the parks and stormwater fund. Overall, all revenues, I'm estimating by the end of 2020 will be down about $2 million below what we estimated they would be. That's even taking into consideration that we have estimated $743,000 and some change from the county for the CARES Act municipal relief grant. One of our, in looking at the sales tax that we've received basically since March of this year, looking at actual collections, our worst month was down about 42%. Other months have been better. So as obviously, otherwise we wouldn't only be down 3% for the year. But I think that potential is still there. So we are still assuming that we will have the lower sales tax not only through the end of 2020, but into probably mid-year 2021. Okay. This slide then shows where we expect to be at the end of 2021 with the recommended budget that we've placed before you. So you can see we're obviously dipping farther into fund balances. In most of the funds, our ending fund balances are here. So the ending general fund ratio is now down to 59%. And as you know, that our requirement is at least 50%. So this is where we think we will be if we adopt this recommended budget for 2021. These are our revenues by all sources. Just wanted to give you a quick overview, just to show you that the sales tax is about 48% of our total revenues. In 2020 budget, we assumed that this would be more like 52%. So you can see that we've lost part of our biggest chunk of revenue there. And then that's followed, the largest is 48% sales tax, and you can see it follows then with the licenses, permits, and the utility taxes. And as we talked about before, we have lost, we feel the COVID response has lost us permit revenue, some utility tax, and some just general other program related revenue. The grants and contributions is up. And that just compares to the expenditures by type. So you can see that the police and then fire and ambulance, the two of those together total about 56% of all of our revenues. When you if you add in prosecution and the courts, and look at the full law enforcement activities, that goes up to 58% of the total budget for the city. Looking just then at the general fund. So the general fund budget request is approximately 10.6 million. And this is, my comparisons here are comparing the 2021, I don't know why the title looks odd there, but so the 2020 budget compared to the 2020 estimated expenditures. So these are the COVID reduced expenditures. It's an overall increase of 2.34%. It includes no new programs, no increases to existing programs. It does include a 1.5% increase in salaries for the staff who are not on step increases. Those who are on step increases will still get their step increases. So you can see that's about $45,000 in the general fund, and that does include benefits. So while some of our other resources were obviously declining, our sales tax and other revenues, our staff responded by working, I think, even harder and more efficiently, setting up home offices when they couldn't be in the office to try and keep the work flowing. We feel that our staff really is one of our most valued resources, and for that reason, we are recommending the salary increase, despite the fact that we do have lower revenues. But this is really kind of a backed into number. We go through the rest of the budget very carefully and look at it and then decide whether or not we have the resources available to give our staff an increase. That's the same process we use every year. So that's the recommendation for this year. We have quite a few costs that really are beyond our kind of general control. The fire and EMS cost increases, those are based on contracts. Our insurance is based on generally market conditions. Our pension increases are related to salaries, and again, what the pension system needs in order to continue our pension at our current level. And our health insurance increases, we estimate, will be up about 2%. The road fund budget is estimated at almost $2 million. That's an increase of 194%. Sounds like a lot. It is a lot. But again, we're talking most of that is related to projects. 1.3 million, or 68% of the budget, is related to capital projects. $500,000 of the budget is for road maintenance. And of that road maintenance, most of that relates to right-of-way maintenance. And we did increase that by $140,000 over the 2020 estimated expenditures. But that's still significantly below prior year spending. We deferred a lot of maintenance in 2020, and we just can't keep deferring maintenance. These are the capital projects that are in the road fund. You'll see that we do not have anything in the budget for deer management. The crack sealing is an annual amount. So we try and do a quarter of the city streets each year, and that keeps that's their preventative maintenance program. So those roads don't deteriorate faster than at all possible. The pavement marking was in the 2020 budget. We did defer that. We did not do it in 2020. So we're requesting it again in 2021. Road sealing was also $175,000 in the 2020 budget. We did not do that, but feel that it's critical to do in 2021. Topping road, we've discussed topping road, I think, several times. You know that we've split that between the road fund for the roadway portion of that project and the trail cost and the stormwater cost. So you will see the topping road improvements also in those other funds. The grant revenue also follows those costs. The Clayton Ballas intersection project, I know that that project has been canceled, but we received $261,000 in federal grant revenue for that project that will probably have to be returned because the project has been canceled. The capital improvement fund is recommended budget is 1.2 million. That's a decrease of just over 1%. It includes 100,000 for maintenance of capital equipment, about 300,000 for maintenance of the municipal building, 800,000 for capital equipment projects. And I did give you a list in your packet of all of those, all the capital equipment for that's in the 2021 request. I didn't repeat it in this spreadsheet or in this PowerPoint because it's so large. But I did list the capital improvement major projects. One of the ones that is new really this year that we haven't probably talked too much about is the IT infrastructure rebuild. That's really becoming more and more critical. It's something that we probably should have done years ago and continued to increase. Our current system, the infrastructure of the system doesn't allow us to use some of the most recent upgraded software systems that we should be using. It's in the security is inadequate and the functionality is inefficient and prone to outages. Email, as you probably have recognized, can be fairly slow, and it is difficult, very difficult to maintain the system. The police department office upgrade is a continuation of the project that's been going on for several years to rehab the municipal center. Kind of the last phase of the project is the police department. It was in the budget for 2020, but we deferred that. We really would like to get it done in 2021. The one piece of it that was also in 2020 that we are requesting deferral till 2022 is the conference room. So we would not do the conference room in 2021 as we had hoped that we could have done in 2020. And then we also have 25,000 in roof repairs that we need to do due to a hailstorm from 2019. We received the insurance settlement for that at the end of 2019, brought that money forward into 2020 to do that repair, and then deferred it to 2021. Parks and Stormwater Fund budget is just over 2.3 million. That's an increase of 102%. Under $500,000 of that is for salaries and benefits. About 600,000 is for trail projects. So the reason that the increase in this fund is so significant is that we're going from about 60,000 expected expenditures for trail projects in 2020 to 600,000. So that's one of the big increases there. And we have 630,000 for stormwater projects. And we expect that we'll spend about 330,000 in 2020. So that's the other reason that we have such a large increase there. But again, the stormwater projects, we had originally had, I don't have it right in front of me, but at least 600,000 budgeted, and we dropped that down to 300,000 for 2020. Well, I'll go on to the next, which will show, okay, the proposed, well, we'll come back to the capital, but the 2021 proposed events, parks events, are listed here. So you can see some of the different events that we hope to hold. Some of the events are offset by either registration fees or offset by volunteer time. Offset with the art events are also offset with revenues that are received. The wellness program, we're still working off of the 2019 donation. So that's what we are estimating will be left over from that grant and carried over from 2020 into 2021. And then our capital and stormwater projects are listed here. So you can see some of the projects that are identified for 2021. Again, main thing to point out is the Topping Road Trail project. And this will be offset by some grant revenue. I believe it's 50% grant revenue. Starting up Mason Road Trail North Phase 1, which is Clayton Road to I-6440. And then these are the proposed stormwater projects for 2021. I think you've seen the 5-year capital plan a couple times. This hasn't changed very much. It was also part of your packet. Don't know where I am on time, sorry.
You're getting close.
Out of time. So I'm not going to go through each one of these slides because you do have them and they're just really a repeat. It just shows our 5-year plan for the different funds. So roadway, the capital improvement fund, parks and trails, and then stormwater.
Madam Director, thank you. You have put us in a very, very good place by virtue of the data, the information, the analysis, the projections. Those things are what this board and my office rely upon to make good decisions. And without you and your thoughtful guidance, we would not be able to do that. So Mr. Shelton, I hope you're listening. You've got a good one there. That was a very good presentation. And it's also a repeat of what we've heard for about a month now. I've been working on this budget since August, along with our team in the administration. And our goal this year, similar to most years, but even more so, has been to provide ongoing and real-time updates to information. So please consider the materials that were presented tonight and direct your questions to me or to Mr. Shelton or to our finance director as we move through the budget process. She outlined the next steps, and those are always how we proceed. But if you have questions, call me. If you have questions, if you're curious about something, call Ms. Wrights. Our Ways and Means Commission, under the leadership of Alderman Allen, has been remarkable. They have done critical analysis, made bold recommendations, some of which have been followed, some of which have not. And that's fine. That's the process. But the fact that they are offering those researched and thoughtful positions is exactly why they are in the position they are in, and we rely upon them. Ultimately, the decision is up to the board, and we will be acting upon this over the next month. Moving on to our regular meeting agenda, we are Minutes have been distributed from the meeting of October 26th. How they look? Everybody okay? Thank you. We'll take hearing from citizens. We've received a lot of comments, most with respect to chickens, but we will deal with that either at the agenda item or under hearing from citizens, and our clerk will guide us through that process. Regarding the appointment to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I want to thank Alderman Fauci. She is the only member of this board that reached out to me to express their opinion. Those that did not, I'm assuming that they were comfortable with the information. I reached out to some of them and they confirmed that comfort. Anybody that didn't, I regret that, because this is the opportunity and this is how we do business. Alderman Fauci and I had a very good conversation this afternoon. It was appointed. It was productive, and I want to thank her again for it. Other members of the commission of the board that I reached out to confirmed their position on the matter, and I respect that as well. And everybody on this board knows who you are. We're on unfinished business. We're going to recognize Alderman Weezahan's recusal on item number 1. Is the rest of the board ready to proceed on that matter? A thumbs up or some indication. Alderman Fauci.
Mayor, I do have a substitute bill that I'll be offering, and thank Alderman Whitmire for his assistance as we worked through for many hours some concerns, and so I will be offering a substitute.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Alderman, and that is the right way to do business. When you and your colleagues work together and bring a substitute, I'm going to make the assumption that that's a good piece of legislation, and we're looking forward to your offering that substitute. You'll be recognized for that purpose. Next, we're on item number 2, that is dealing with chickens. Alderman Holman, you have something on this matter?
I do, Mayor. I have an amendment to the ordinance.
And do you want to chat about that, or do you want to save it for the floor?
After researching backyard chickens and having many conversations with our city planner, Ryan Spencer, I have an amendment to the maintenance section to add the chicken coop to the structure of the chicken coop, adding a minimum of 1 foot off ground. And the purpose behind that is that with our research, we found when you think about a chicken coop visually, hopefully what comes to mind is that plank up to your chicken coop. And the reason for that is rats and mice like to nest and burrow under chicken coops. And our research found the best habits to put up a chicken coop is incorporating raising it off the ground. And then our research on the worst habits of installing a chicken coop is to not raising it off the ground. So we've added that amendment tonight.
Well, ma'am, you have immediately surpassed my knowledge of proper cooping, and I'm very grateful to your work for it. Your amendment will be recognized, and we'll address that matter when we take the bill. Everybody, Alderman Benegas.
Thank you, Mayor. Would it be possible for us to get staff's response as to what might be required for enforcing this ordinance, or how the enforcement might occur?
Mr. Shelton, you know what? Yeah, let's chat about this. And I'm okay if we're not ready to proceed. I do not believe this is a time-sensitive item. It's a serious item because I've heard from a lot of people on it. But if we want to continue this discussion, I would be okay with that. Mr. Shelton.
Just Mayor, members of the board, the ordinance requires a conditional use permit. We would have a record of any coops, but they would be enforced, and Mr. Spencer does our enforcement on a nuisance basis. So if there is a complaint of odor or noise or et cetera, unkept coop, then we would be able to enforce that under this ordinance.
So Alderman Benegas raises a very good question. I appreciate your response. Council will remember our discussion dealing with odoriferous surroundings, particularly with respect to a horse studio or some sort of a location, and the neighbors around them looking for some objective criteria rather than somebody's sense of smell, because people differ in that regard, and I respect both sides. So I would hope that our ordinance would have sufficient objective criteria that we would not put ourselves in the chicken coop smell business. It would be a little clearer than that. Council, do you have any advice for us on this? And Mr. Garrett, you are on mute. There you go.
No, I do. My response to your concern or question is, number one, okay, there could be a nuisance smell. We've dealt with that before. It's a difficult matter to deal with. But in this particular case, the ordinance also has very specific requirements that must be met by whomever it is that chooses to get into the chicken business. And so those would be enforced like any other code violation, presumably. They'd get a warning, they're not cleaning it right. They're not, certain matters aren't met that are required in the ordinance. And if they did not take care of that, then they presumably get a ticket and go through our court system.
Okay. Thank you. Alderman Benegas, does that respond to your concerns?
Yeah, I think we're still considering an ordinance that gets us right back in the same issue that we had with the horses. It's an objective or a subjective thing, excuse me. And I'm just trying to get a sense of how much staff time, and if we do have a complaint, how it would go about being resolved. And from my perspective, we're opening issues for ourselves by moving this forward.
Thank you. Further discussion. Is the board ready to proceed on this evening? We're on item number 2 regarding chicken hens.
I'm ready.
Thank you, ma'am. Are others ready to proceed? I am if the board is. I'm seeing no major objections. We'll take the matter up on second reading this evening. We're on item number 3, and that deals with hours of construction activities. Alderman Holman, Alderman Fauci, are you ready to go?
I am.
Good, thank you. Thank you for not including chickens in that. We are on item number, we're on new business.
Mayor, item number 3.
Yes, sir.
I noticed that this ordinance does not specify indoor versus outdoor construction. And it seems like it applies to outdoor construction, but doesn't apply to indoor construction. So I just noticed that this afternoon in reviewing it. And I'm wondering if the sponsors would be willing to include the caveat of just outdoor construction for this bill.
Well, Alderman, being somebody that shares a common wall with a neighbor that is doing a major interior renovation at very early hours in the morning, which I happen to be fine with, I don't know. Council, do you have any advice for us?
Mayor, if I might.
Hold on, sir. Let me get Mr. Garrett's response, and then I'll recognize you.
I think it's a good point that I don't know if the intent behind this was to include indoor and outdoor. Obviously, indoor construction can result in noise. And so my assumption was that this was not limited to outdoor construction. If that's the desire, then we should state that.
Thank you. Alderman Benegas.
Thank you, Mayor. In cases that you're referencing, Mayor, usually the association, it's specifically addressing the condominium complex, And most associations have more restrictive guidelines in this, but it seems to me that this is really addressing exterior construction. Me jackhammering the floor of my basement is not going to dramatically negatively affect my neighbors, I don't believe. So I think this applies to outdoor construction. And if it is in regard to condominiums, then there is more restrictive guidelines from those associations.
Alderman Hughes, you appear to have a substitute on this bill. Do you want to speak to the matter?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I was going to raise my hand. Basically, what the substitute bill talks about is not allowing any construction on Sundays and holidays. And anyway, observed holidays, prohibited on like weekends. And it talks about the hours. And I've had several people say to me on my street that, boy, that sounds great. No work on Sunday. So anyway, yes, I do plan to introduce that.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Do you have a sense, and then I want to move on because I would not mind continuing this matter if there's an open question. Because again, these are not emergency matters and I want to get them right, particularly dealing with, these are issues that affect neighborhood relationships, and those are paramount in our community. But do you have a feeling, Alderman Hughes, on the interior versus exterior issue?
I would say primarily exterior.
You don't live where I live, too. And that,
I don't share a common wall. That's true.
That's right. I don't, right? You can wake me up any time of day and night. I'm probably the first guy up in the morning. But be that as it may, what's the will of the board? Do you want to talk about this over the intervening 2 weeks, or do you want to? I'm sorry, it's on first reading. Let's just first read it and let's work out these issues.
Okay.
All right. And no, it's
No,
not.
it's second reading.
I'm wrong. I apologize.
Mayor, if I could add, the staff would interpret this to be interior or exterior, because interior renovation, as you know, can be loud and disruptive.
Brutal.
And at what point is it considered interior during new construction when a home is under construction? So we would.
Alderman Holman, would you continue this matter for 2 weeks and sort these discussion points out?
Can I ask, can we add an amendment to just clarify it, including interior and exterior? Or, I am happy to continue it, but I think it's a simple fix.
That'd be fine. I really don't have a hard feeling about it personally. I'm just offering these observations, and they're good questions that Alderman Benegas brings to the forefront. Alderman Hughes has a substitute. You might roll it into a combined bill in 2 weeks' time and address all this, and we can be done with it. Unless somebody says that they cannot stand the fact that this law is not on our books for the next 2 weeks.
I'm happy to continue it.
I'll recognize that motion. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. We are now on new business. Alderman Allen and Mortland, are you sponsoring this bill?
Please.
Mayor, I'd like to be added to that as well.
Certainly. Does the board as a whole want on?
I think that's a great idea.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Everybody okay? Okay, that's how we'll handle it. We'll first read that. We've got the approval of a purchase order. Everybody all right with the ballistic vests?
Yes.
If somebody is not, they could see Chief Cavens.
Fine.
Alderman Weezahan seeking recognition. Please proceed, sir.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. I can't find it in the budget in front of me right now, but I was looking in the 2021 budget, and it also lists load-bearing vests. I think there was 25. Is that in addition to these?
Chief?
If I may, Mayor, the difference, Alderman Weezahan, is these are the ballistic panels. These ballistic panels that are being replaced will fit into the load-bearing vest carriers that we plan on purchasing after 2021.
Okay.
Two different
All right.
things.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good question, and they are two different items. We're gonna pass that tonight. We're gonna take up the CUP findings of facts. Everybody okay with the warrant list? I want to get back on time. Tell me if you're not. Somebody speak up. Everyone, okay, thanks, Alderman Allen. And then we're gonna go into closed session on some real estate matters. I'd appreciate a motion to that effect. All right, thank you, everyone. Sign off.